Now I will show you what you need to create a multicoloured woodblock print. Some of these things you may already have if you're a printmaker, or you may have to go out and buy them from a printmaking supplies. Some of these are my personal choice, and you may have your own preferences, such as paper type. Everyone has their favourite papers that will suit their needs. Starting with the wood blocks, I use a Japanese wood block in 2 different sizes. The block I will be demonstrating on is 15 by 20, but I also use the 10 by 15 centimetres. These blocks are 1 centimetre deep. I use these as they are pre-cut to the same size, which means they will always have the correct registration. I buy them from a printmaker supplies. I'll be using the 15 by 20 centimetre one, but if you haven't had much experience cutting wood blocks, I would recommend the 10 by 15 centimetre blocker, as there's less work to carve them. You'll need 2 blocks of your choice for this print. The paper I use is called Zirkle Smooth 145 GSM. GSM relates to the weight of the paper, and this is fairly fine without being so delicate that it can't withstand many runs through the press or hand rubbing. The other paper I have used is Origami Bamboo paper, 110 GSM. This is also robust enough to make many runs through the press. It is a finer paper at 110 GSM, so it would suit hand rubbing better. There may be other papers out there that you prefer. I cut the papers into 23 centimetres by 28 centimetres for the bigger print, and 14 by 19 for the smaller wood block. This gives a good border around the actual print to make it easier to mount later on. The excess paper I keep for other projects, and it is important to actually cut the paper rather than tear. Many other printmaking practices you tear the paper, but this is important. The edge is sharp, in particular at least one corner. I do leave the decal on some parts, but it's important that it's actually a straight corner. This is for registration purposes. For most print runs, I will cut 2 sheets of the Zirkle Smooth paper into 8 pieces of paper. Here I've only cut 4. This gives me enough to make one edition that I'm happy with. It doesn't seem like very many, but when you consider the options for printing multiple types of print, multiple editions from the one block, 8 begins to seem enough for each time round. There have been occasions when I wished I'd print a few more because I was very happy with the print and it sold out. But 8 is what I usually do, but that's entirely up to you. If you're very happy with how things are working out, then by all means cut a load more. These are the tools that I use the most. I have a range of sizes from 0.5 through to about 4 millimeters. This one is extremely fine, as is that one at 1 millimeter. This one is a V gouge and this is a U gouge. And this is a wider blade tool for carving larger areas. When I have any really large areas that need carved, I will use one or other of these ones. These are a Japanese tool, and they have a very comfortable Swiss-made tool. There you go. They have a very comfortable handle. They're called Feel, and I will provide you with the information about the types available and extra information. I also use this tool, Power Grip tool, it has a straight edge, beveled straight edge, which is very handy for cutting around the edges of areas that I wish to be left uncut. So these tools are the ones I use for almost all of my work. There are other tools available, and these are the Japanese tool. They are a good little tool. They split in half, and the blade is extendable. When you sharpen a lot, use a lot, sharpen a lot, and the tool starts to wear away, you can make it shorter or longer. I have 3 sizes in these, a 2 millimeter, a 1 and a 1.5. If you don't have any of these tools, and they're not cheap, and you want to start work, a cheap set of lino cut tools will actually do the job as long as they're sharp and fairly new. But on a short-term basis they're fine, but for long-term cutting wood, if you're enthusiastic, the best thing to do is invest in some of these tools. There are a number of different other ones out there of different shapes, and it's all a case of personal preference because they all seem to be quite good. This is just the ones that I choose. I will put this information up on a PDF for you later. The main product that enabled me to develop the technique was this oil-based ink extender. This is a translucent base that pigment is added to make relief print inks. It dilutes the colour to obtain more subtle effects. When I started looking for something to dilute the colours I had, I could only find oil-based extenders, so I started printing in oil-based inks. Understand extender is also available for water-based or water wash-up inks. Don't be put off by the state of this tin. I put a layer of baking paper over the surface to keep it from going hard like has happened here. And I access it. Unfortunately, you always end up with quite a bit of waste, but you do get a large tin and it's not particularly expensive. Initially, I only used oil paint in tubes to colour my prints, as that is what I had, but a few years back I was fortunate enough to buy around about 150 tins of commercial print ink, mostly partly used, and now I have a huge range of colours to choose from. I do enjoy the sheen that the oil-based prints adds to my ink. Oil paints and ink extender are very effective, and if that is what you have, I would recommend it, but there is also a large range of relief inks available, some oil-based, some water-based, and everything in between. I've become fixed in what I use, but if you are starting out, try different things to work out what you like best. Oil-based inks are rather messy and clean up with either turpentine or vegetable oil and detergent, but it gets messy and smelly. One benefit from using a limited range of primary oil-coloured paints as the colouring agent was I learned to mix colours using a colour wheel and experimentation. To apply the ink evenly to the block, you will need rollers. I use 2 sizes frequently and the larger ones occasionally. They come in a range of qualities and prices, but are really an essential item. I use palette knives to spread and mix the inks. You will also need an inking plate. I use 2 pieces of glass, one salvaged from an old oven, the other from a large window. Anything like these would be fine. I've covered the edge of this one with tape to protect my fingers, but the other oven door has beveled edges. I mostly use turpentine as a cleaning fluid to clean up the ink once I've finished inking, but I also use gum turpentine, which is a bit of an indulgence as it's very expensive, but it does smell nice. You can also clean the glass inking plate and rollers with vegetable oils and rags. Rags are something you'll need a lot of. I also use pages torn from a telephone directory to wipe the ink plate down. Newspaper is also good for that. I use carbon paper to transfer the elements of the image to the plate. You will see that I've used the word block and plate interchangeably, but they are the same thing. If you don't have a printing press, you can use a Baron. This is a cheap one that I bought along with a set of carving tools many years back. I have 3 of these, and despite their cheapness, they've actually lasted extremely well. You use that to rub the paper onto the ink. It doesn't give as crisp and clean a finish as a press does, but it's quite effective, especially when using a finer paper like the 110 GSM bamboo paper, or slightly finer. If you're not going to do too much rubbing and too many layers, the thinner paper will be fine. An essential element of this process is what's called a registration plate. This looks a bit rough, but this is what I do the bulk of my prints with, my 15 by 20. It is a piece of chipboard or MDF, and I've cut a hole in it that's slightly larger than the block, and I've marked on it where the paper must lie, which is along these edges. So I'll line up a corner and run it along that way or that way, depending on if it's a portrait or landscape print. I have another one that suits the smaller block, and these are an essential part of what you do. The distance between the plate and the edge of the paper is what gives you the border, And these marks ensure that every time you put your paper down, it goes into the same place, and your registration's very good. The image that you are going to work with or from is the next thing. I always use a photograph that I've taken myself. I print it up onto copy paper to the size of the block. So it needs to be, in this case, 15 by 20 centimetres. To get that, you might have to crop and size, but you also need to adjust it by flipping it horizontally. If you don't do that, you will end up with a mirror image of the picture that you want. In this case, it wouldn't actually matter very much because it could be anywhere, but if you've got something that's important, that's got features that you want recognised or text, if you don't flip it, you will end up with a mirror image of the print because you carve onto the block a mirror image, and then it will print back to the original way. This will become self-explanatory as we work through the course. I make some minor adjustments on the colour, and unfortunately my printer prints quite dark, so basically it's just a guide. You're not going to get a picture like this exactly, and you wouldn't want it anyway because you might as well just do photography, but it is a guide to where you need to put your colours and the adjustments you make with your inks later on. This is a fairly simple scene. There is a foreground, a background, and then the feature of the print is actually the sky and the number of different tones of colour through the clouds. You may wish to work from a drawing that you have done or some other sort of image. It doesn't have to be a photograph, just so long as you cut or draw your image to the size of the plate that you are going to work with. So when the time comes to transfer the images, I will cut this paper out, I'll cut the image out and I'll tape it onto the block. This will be demonstrated in the next set of lectures. This concludes the discussion on materials that you will need. The next part of the course will see us transferring the image onto 4 sides of the wooden blocks. See you then.